It is usually believed that good governance is like air. Its presence might not be discussed, but its absence will definitely make a huge difference. However, these unprecedented and unexpected times require that we discuss and deliberate about the different challenges in governance in the post-COVID scenario. We also see that the gap between governance and government has been widening, not just in the Indian context, but also globally. Actors other than the government have come to assume similar roles in exercising their control and authority. And governance is not just limited to the common man anymore. It spans over the different sectors of the economy, including the financial sector, the banking sector, the corporates, media, etc. And that is why today we have with us here panelists from all these sectors of the economy to throw light on the various challenges in corporate governance. Professor Dr. Sarat Kumar Acharya, National Professor and Advisor, Birla Global University; Professor Dr. B.K. Das, Registrar, Birla Global University; Professor Dr. Samson Moharana, Dean, Birla School of Commerce, Birla Global University; Professor Dr. D.V. Ramana, Professor, Finance and Accounting, Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar; Shree Sanjeev Kumar Mishra, former Commissioner, Bhubaneswar Municipal Corporation; Dr. Ashok Panda, Chairman, Public Relations Council of India, Bhubaneswar Chapter; and to all the participants present with us here today, a very good morning to all of you. I am Lopamudra Nayak, and I welcome you all to this webinar on post-COVID-19, the challenges in governance, organized by Birla School of Commerce, Birla Global University. We are very happy, fortunate, and elated to have such eminent guests with us here today. We have with us Professor Dr. Sarat Kumar Acharya. Professor Acharya retired as the Managing Director and Chairman of Navali Lignite Corporation, and he carries with him rich and wide experience of working in reputed PSUs like the BEL, the NTPC, and NLC. He has also been conferred with the prestigious PSU Leadership Award in the year 2016. He is currently the advisor and national professor, Birla Global University. Welcome, sir. We are still waiting for our next panelist, Professor Dr. B.K. Das, to join. We also have with us Professor Dr. D.V. Ramana. Professor Ramana is a visionary and an achiever, and Sir has more than 3 decades of rich working and teaching experience. He also worked as a senior consultant with PwC. Dr. Ramana has been associated with several academic institutions like the Pondicherry University, SP Jain College of Management, and also with several government organizations like the Ferrochrome and Alloys Limited, Central Electricity Supply Utility, etc. Sir has been with Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar since 1989. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
We also have with us our next panelist, Shree Sanjeev Kumar Mishra, former Commissioner, Bhubaneswar Municipal Corporation. Sir was an academician before joining the prestigious Orissa Administrative Service in 1985. And Sir has worked in the urban sector for more than 12 years in important positions like the Director, Municipal Administration, and Commissioner, BMC. Sir was also a member of the 5th State Finance Commission, Government of Odisha. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next panelist, we have Dr. Ashok Panda. Dr. Panda is an academician and a very well-known personality in the media industry. He has contributed towards academics as a visiting fellow at Oxford University, and he was also visiting faculty at reputed Indian universities like the Calcutta University, Banaras Hindu University, NIFT, and NIT Rourkela. He has also been conferred with the prestigious Kalinga Gaurav Samman in 2018 for his contribution to journalism. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Last but not the least, we have with us our constant source of motivation, Dean, Birla School of Commerce, Professor Dr. Samson Moharana. Professor Moharana has 37 years of teaching experience in the field of commerce. He retired as Professor Head and Dean, Faculty of Commerce, Utkal University, and he has done his FDP from the prestigious IIM Ahmedabad. Sir was also a member of the 5th State Finance Commission, Government of Odisha. With this, a very warm welcome to all our panelists and all our participants. And now I would request our Dean Sir to kindly address the forum. Sir, please. Professor Maharana, are you there with us?
I cannot get into unless someone mute your video.
Yes, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Professor Lopamutra. Welcome
Thank you, sir.
our esteemed panelist and the participant. This is the second webinar being organized by the School of Commerce. We are indeed privileged to have a galaxy of panelists from different sectors of the economy, and we do have quite a large number of participants from different sectors. Uh, we are organizing this particular webinar at a time when the Indian economy is facing a crisis. It's the worst crisis which it has seen since independence. A particular small crisis which broke out in one country as a health crisis, it spread to nearly 212 countries of the world, and it has destroyed the economies of most of the countries. In India, we find that nearly 212 million people have lost their jobs. The factories are closed and educational institutions have been shut down. The financial market is in a doldrum. The export have fallen flat, and government is struggling to arrange revenue to meet its emergency expenses. Just yesterday, it has been notified that the lockdown conditions have been liberalized, and it has been liberalized in a way that the normal economy activities can start. Our roads are now crowded. Our trains have started running. Maybe most of the infrastructure sectors also, they have started providing services. These large organized units also, they have started producing, maybe in a slow pace. But very important is that government is now serious that this COVID crisis should not be taken as an obstacle in the economic development process. We should start managing our economy along with the COVID. Now, question arises, what we need to kickstart the economy? Our finance minister, she has announced a massive fiscal stimulus package of nearly 21 lakh crores just few days back, to provide the finance support, to provide the liquidity support, and to create a business environment. And we hope that this particular financial package will play a very important role in creating an environment where the entrepreneurs, etc., they will be motivated to start their operation. But it is not taking place. There are problems. One important question that comes to my mind is whether the finance or the credit is sufficient in motivating the entrepreneur to start the unit, whether the credit is sufficient to ensure that economic growth is strong, sustainable. Economists feel that finance is not the only factor in the production process. We need technology, but more important, we need governance. Most of the economists, they are of the view that we need good governance, because good governance is associated with economic development in many countries of the world. Our Prime Minister has emphasized time and again that the government emphasis on minimum government and maximum governance. See, governance is a very generic term. It is an interdisciplinary term. It is not specific to commerce, management, economics, or any particular technology. It is applicable in all institutions to have their governance model. Governance is basically how you are taking the decision and how the decisions are implemented. This is all about governance. And if in a crisis situation your governance model is not coming up to the expectation, probably people will get frustrated because this is a pandemic situation and where people are looking at the authorities who are providing services or who are providing product. Normally we say good governance is something Normally, we say good governance is something which we should have some basic features. Just 3 or 4 features I want to tell you that they are very important. First is transparency in decision making. The second one is accountability. And the third one is adherence to the rule of law. The fourth one is integrity, honesty and integrity in decision making. It is applicable to public sector, it is applicable to private sector, it is applicable to banks, it is applicable to media, it is applicable to all the sectors of the economy. Question arises, good governance which have been there in most of the institutions for the last few decades, whether those governance model will be effective in a crisis situation? Probably the answer may be no, because a crisis situation needs different type of governance, a proactive model of governance. And many of the institutions in India, including the government, they have started redesigning their governance model. Some of the states in India who have redesigned the governance model more proactive, they have been very successful in facing the crisis of this pandemic crisis. And there are some institutions, some government, they have not been that proactive. As a result of which, what we are observing that they have achieved very limited success. Governance is one thing which needs continuous change. People have a lot of expectation. They expect the government and the other institutions to provide the goods and services for which they are mandated. They are in charge of providing service and they have to. Otherwise, there will be a feeling of frustration. There will be a feeling of neglect. And I am happy to say that in India, government and private institutions, they are working 24 hours 24 hours to meet the challenges of this particular crisis by changing their rules and regulation from time to time so that they can get close to the people and they can manage the crisis. Now in this particular background, this particular School of Commerce of Birla Global University is organizing this webinar where we have invited experts from different sectors of the economy and they will be speaking on the governance challenges of which their institution is facing in the light of the particular crisis and what steps, what measures they have taken to address these challenges. I'm sure that we'll have a very productive and very vibrant, very educative discussion today, which will benefit all the participants. Thank you very much.
Can we ask others to be muted, sir? For all, there is a disturbance going on. Can we ask the administrator to mute others? Professor
Yes, sir, we can do that. We can do that. Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Otherwise, there's lots of
Yes,
disturbance all around.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Professor Maharana, for starting our discussions and deliberations for today on the correct direction and explaining to us the basics of the current economic scenario and the current system of governance. Dr. B.K. Das, sir, do we have you with us?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir, and very warm welcome to the webinar. Sir, I would take this privilege of quickly introducing you. Professor Das is a certified associate of the Indian Institute of Bankers. He was appointed by the Government of India as the Chairman, Regional Rural Bank for 3 years and has also been associated with several programs for the promotion of MSME sector like the Integrated Rural Development Program and the Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana. He retired as the General Manager, UCO Bank, and we're privileged enough to have him as our registrar at Birla Global University. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Taking the discussion forward, I would like to direct my next question towards Professor Acharya. Sir, are you there with us?
Sir, not audible.
Professor Acharya, you're not audible. No, sir, you're still not audible. So can you unmute yourself, sir? Okay, we'll wait for Professor Acharya to get connected, and we'll take our discussion forward. So my question is for Professor B.K. Das. So last year we saw our Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman introduced a chain of reforms for the public sector banks, and the RBI governor was also of the opinion that the lack of corporate governance has led to capital shortfalls, frauds, and a lot of bad loans for the banks. So you have a lot of experience in top level of management in these public sector banks. So what is your opinion regarding the corporate governance system in the existing banking structure? Professor Das.
Yeah, thank you. Good
Yes,
morning
sir.
to all the panelists and all the participants who are watching this webinar. On behalf of Birla Global University, I extend a warm welcome to all of you, and very much thankful to Professor Maharana and Professor Lopa for taking
Thank you,
this
sir.
webinar for us. To start with, when we talk of banking in India, in India it is dominated by the public sector. Major business of the banking sector is captured by the public sector. So when I'm talking about the banking sector, I'm basically focusing on public sector banks. And basically, I have worked in a public sector banks, so I'll deal on that. Now, to start with, I will take you back to 1969 when the birth of public sector started, public sector banks in India. During 69, all of you know that suddenly overnight, major private banks of the country were taken over by the government of India, and they became 100% owned by the government of India. So there was an overnight shift from private banking to public banking. What is public banking? So next day, the banks were asked to redesign entire thing as per the direction of the owners. Owners means the government of India. So we found that there were instructions that from class banking you move to mass banking. What is class banking? That is banks were looking for the creamy layer of the society in terms of deposits, in terms of projects, in terms of industries where they get the profit. But suddenly they were asked to go for mass banking, and the government of India said that you have to invest this much in this sector, this much in this sector. If you have 100 rupees deposit with you, put 30 rupees in your CRR SLR, rest 70 rupees. Out of that 60% you have to invest in priority sector. That means in agriculture, small scale industries, rural artisans, allied to agriculture. So this started a new, banking chapter started in the country. So the governance system in the banks, major banks of the country, suddenly changed, driven instead of being driven by for the profit of the shareholders, it became the priority of the government. The owner is the government, so the priority changed. So you can imagine uh, the workforce who were working in a private setup, suddenly they were asked to work for the government, and in the process there was a big churning out of manpower in the public sector banks, because the old timers, they could not accept the challenge or the change. Suddenly they are asked to finance to the projects where there is no security. They are asked to the doorstep of the depositors to open accounts. So all this sort of thing, there was churning out, not only financially, physically, psychologically, everything that got changed. Anyway, that was one instance where the banking sector got shaken up, and this continued for a long time because government started implementing most of the popular program like 20-point economic program, Antyodaya program, so many programs, Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana. So all these things were asked to be executed by the banking sector. And by the time it was late 80s, there were cracks in all the public sector banks. Cracks in terms of profitability, the strain on the capital. So the Narsiam committee, you must be knowing, that nursing home committee was appointed to suggest what can be done. So the committee, gave a report which said that you have to change your policy, you have to give independence to the banks, you have to change your policy for recruitment. So many things came, uh, and they wanted to put some sort of autonomy to the banking system, but it didn't happen. Again, another same nursing home committee gave another report. There also they suggested many things, that banks should be given freedom to choose the borrowers. They should not be there should not be directed lending. It should be viability based lending. So this also continued. In the meantime, another side was working. The government suddenly said that private sector banks must be created. New generation of private sector banks should come because the public sector banks are becoming day by day. So during the early 90s, there was a spot of private sector banks, new generation private sector banks, because the private sector banks were already there and some of them were taken over by government, but they wanted some new public private sector banks, because public sector banks are not changing their attitude, or they are not able to adapt technology. So technology driven news banks will be allowed to function. That is one. But at the same time, another thing happened. Most of the term lending institutions in India, like IDBI, ICICI, IFCI, UTI, all these organizations were also developing sickness, because they had given massive term loans, project loans to the industry, and they were also showing the sign of sickness. So most of them were converted to banks. So they were given the title that new generation private sector banks. So this is one
Are you
development
good
in the
now?
Indian banking sector, and the entire public sector banks again got the shock, because there was massive competition. The trade unions were not allowing the public sector banks to introduce computerization, so they were not able to deliver. They were not technologically savvy. So this is one part of the development in banking sector in India. I just wanted to give a background. So at this stage, you can imagine the way the governance changed. The board of directors were dominated by Government of India people, Reserve Bank people, and people nominated by the Government of India, by the owners. So entire scenario changed, and the employees also developed a they thought this is a government organization. So whether there's a profit or loss, we are not bothered. We have to implement the government direction. Let there be profit or no profit. So those banks which in the private sector were creating huge profits, suddenly the same bank started giving loss. So this is one thing. I'm not, casting aspersion on anybody, but this is what happened. Why it happened? Because the priority of the government changed. In that backdrop, most of the public sector banks were also asked to go for term lending. You know, commercial banks are basically to give for short-term financing, working capital finance. But they were asked to fill up the gap because the term lending institutions became sick. So the bank, public sector bank staff, they didn't have the expertise to handle project financing, but they were given this task. So you'll find there was a shift from private sector or term lending institution. The long-term loans were shifted to the commercial banks. So there was a huge mismatch of the assets and liability. So this is one thing. And 19, 2007-8, when there was a meltdown throughout the world, the India was slightly affected. And that time, why it was slightly affected financially? Because the government of India again set up a task force by the Planning Commission, which said that all the terms loans, all the project loans should be refaced. Refuse means what? So they were going to be NPA, non-performing assets, but just to avoid that scenario, they converted it to refacement. So the term loan installments were refaced. So most of the accounts continued to be performing assets. But this refacement is just, it was postponing the problem. The problem which came later on, that huge mounting NPA started coming, was the result of this. It was to come up that time, but it was postponed for about 5-6 years or 10 years. So this is another development. The government found that banking sector is going to be shattered unless they do something seriously. So there was this lot of amendments. I mean, the creation of legal framework like Securitization Act, the Debt Recovery Tribunal Act. All these things were there, but they were also taking a lot of time. So they started a new experiment by passing the insolvency bankruptcy code, and the cases were to be on fast track under the national, the NCLTs. So this is another development, and this started paying dividend. There was huge recovery from big companies like steel sector, power sector, airlines. You talk of any infrastructure project. So there were a lot of acquisition and merger and lot of recovery also. So banking sector was looking for a very, very bright future ahead. And the government of India has also came out with a lot of reforms to give real autonomy to these banks. They started with a BBB, Banks Board Bureau, which will look after the board functioning. They will also advise the government how to select the chairman, managing director, top executives, and they started giving distancing from the banks. They said, okay, you take your own decision. In fact, you'll be surprised that before this, even the chairman of a bank to go to see the foreign branches, his own branches in a foreign country, has to wait for 2 months to get permission from the government of India to travel abroad. Unless the government permission comes, he can. And there was governance issue in the appointment of the top executives. The people who manned the banks, they were recruited by the government of India, so they were more accountable to the government of India. The Reserve Bank of India is the regulator. They have, they said we have limited power to control the banks because they don't report to us administratively. Only we have banking control over them. But so far as they are concerned, they are your employees. So there was a conflict between the regulator and the owner. The owners, they said, Reserve Bank is the organization. We should control the banks. We have nothing to do. But if you see, in fact, the power was flowing from the North Plug, not from the RBI. So this, of course, it is still continuing, and you have seen in the last few years a lot of RBI governors facing embarrassing situation. So that affects the governance of a publisher bank very, very costly, heavily, because the chairman or the board is not sure whom to follow. So these are some of the issues. And to add to this, when the banks were looking up for a bright future, as I said, recovery was in the horizon. Suddenly, this COVID-19 started. And after that, you know what is happening. And now the government of India, the finance minister has announced many things. I'll touch upon few things only. First of all, he said that there is a feeling that the bank officials are not taking decision because of the fear of three C's, that is CBI, CVC, and CAG. So she said, I have talked to these organizations, they will not go after you. Please sanction loan. This is nowhere this is done like this. There are rules and regulation, and the finance minister says that I have talked to the CBI, CBC, they will not do anything. This is, I don't know how this is possible unless the legislation takes place. That is one issue. And the COVID, after COVID, they have announced a lot of financial incentives to the sector because it is really the economy is now in a very pitiable condition. It was already reeling because there were before COVID also the economic condition of the country was not good. There was downward trend everywhere. The productions, the GDP everywhere, you can see the telltale sign that the economy is going down. And on the top of it, the COVID has given a death blows to the Indian industry, Indian economy, and for that, whatever finance minister has announced, it is good measures. They should pump in more money to the economy to kickstart the economy. But the big part, again, the banks are going to suffer heavily. When I talk of the economy, it is good, but when I talk of the banks are going to pump in huge amount of money, and they have asked to rephrase all the loans. So rephrase means it is again postponing the problem unless the economy gear up again. All these accounts, the present performing accounts are also going to be non-performing accounts. So this is a very crucial situation for us. But it will take another 5-10 years. That is my personal guess to see that the Indian banking are again on a sound footing. So with that, I'll like to invite any further question on this. Lopak, you can.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for taking us through the history of the banking process and how intricacies of how development has taken place in India from the private to public banking and from class to mass banking. Thank you so much, sir. Professor Acharya, do we have you with us?
I
Professor
think, am I
Acharya?
audible right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir,
Thank
my
you.
next question. Yes, sir.
Yeah. But let me just begin with thanking Dr. Maharana for setting the tone and Professor Das telling us about the impact that banking industry has had and the revival process. But one
Yes, sir.
question I had for Mr. Das, that with the NPA increasing day by day and the sort of past performance of the banking sector we have seen, lot many NPAs happening, how healthy you would think all the packages are coming and the compulsion to give loan to MSMEs and other areas. Even without the guarantee, now things will be happening. What about the increasing loan of NPA in future?
Yeah, Professor Acharya, I was telling about that because again we are postponing the problem because the NPAs are still there. Nothing can be done about that. But performing accounts which are there now, they will continue to be performing accounts because of the refacement of the loan. That is one side. The other side is that the way economy is there, and to kickstart it, you have to pump in more money, and nobody can say for sure that these accounts are going to be performing as a, because there will be a lot of pressure on the banks to be liberal on financing. The securities will not be asked for, and going by our past experience, there will be a lot of consumption instead of investment. The loan amount which is meant for investment will be consumed by the people. So there will be huge creation of NPA in future.
That is true.
Thank
That's
you,
true.
sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dasa. Lopa, should we go ahead now with the
Yes, sir.
agenda?
Yes, sir.
That is.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. We'll go ahead with the agenda. And my next question is for you, sir. We see that corporates play a very important role in the economic development of the country. And we also see that corporates were going through a critical phase even before COVID. And the onset of COVID has brought about various challenges in the different functional areas of business. So you have experience in at the top level of management at PSU. So what, according to you, is the opinion regarding the governance practices in corporates, and what are the challenges that they're facing?
Yes, in fact, the entire world is going through a disastrous experience because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And
Yes,
in
sir.
fact, it has broken the backbone of economy of most of the countries in the world. It is not limited to only one country. And in fact, the disastrous effect and impact has broken the backbone of the economy of most of the countries. And it has also affected lives and livelihood both. So keeping the things in view, the corporate bodies or the business community as the wealth creators are in a situation now where they have to face the multiple challenges. We went through a series of repeated lockdowns and excepting perhaps few sectors like healthcare, pharma, and food, all other sectors underwent huge impact that is on the negative side so far as the business is concerned. No production, no consumption, and everything has come almost to a grinding halt, excepting for the industry that I told a very few like pharma, healthcare, utilities, and of course the agriculture pathway. So now, most of the corporate houses, where the corporate governance earlier used to be overseeing, monitoring, and guiding the executive functions, are going to have a new dimension now in terms of addressing the issues and challenges which are basic necessity now for the survival. In fact, any economic activity survives only when both the sides are promising. One is the side where service or the uh, product comes and there is demand also. But we are in a situation where the demand drive also is not there. A great demand squeeze is there. And as I told, in many areas, people will be restricting now themselves the basics, not going for the frills and the other high-end FMCG or automobiles, although things should happen. So this period is going to be prolonged quite long, and depending on the type of industry we are in, every corporate governance or the board now will have to retune, redefine its role, as I told, first focusing on the economic survival. That will take us to two aspects. One is to boost production, but boosting the production with the people where most of the migrant labor have moved and regular people also have not been in a very good position after post-COVID to contribute more and more. So there the challenge would be cutting the cost. Again, once we talk in terms of cutting the cost, first we think, can we bring down the employee cost? Rather, a good, positive corporate governance principle should tell us that let us cut down on the frills, maybe the advertisement cost, maybe the wasteful areas where things can be saved, but at the same time, cutting down the employee cost as such or bringing in huge unemployment is not going to be beneficial for the economy. And the MSMEs are hard hit, and MSMEs are basically the vendors and suppliers to big corporate bodies. So they have to be revived. And coming to the utilities, the discoms are in bad shape. They have to pay. So whatever government is pumping the money, that will be coming. But now, utilization of that money coming in has to be done with absolute care, where all those wasteful expenditure have to be avoided, and production and productivity have to be taken up. Cost restoration have to be done, but not at the cost of employees or people in general. So now, in fact, those executive functions which have to look after that, now the corporate boards will have to bring in new policies with focus on first economic revival and then a midterm and long-term strategy. And before doing that, what basically we'll have to do is to bring in, hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So basically, now the focus coming on the economic side lot many policy changes also will be required. And corporate board, specifically in government, with a lot of directors there, the maximum could be 16, and the government directors and the nominee independent directors there. Earlier, decision making used to be very difficult and time taking. Now, perhaps a time has come where we'll have to map the risk in our own profit, own business, risk in our competitors, and risk in the market, and to tune ourselves with the new policy. And for policy changes, that agility and flexibility and knowledge on the part of all the directors, not only the executive directors, but also the independent directors and government directors are called for. Then coming to the economic compulsions and balancing human requirements, we cannot think of, forget the corporate social responsibility that we used to address. Corporate social responsibility had maybe 13 items as per the Companies Act 2013, but there perhaps the infrastructural things can wait for a time. But looking at the people, people's requirements, there simply as the corporate bodies, that basic principle we have to uphold. And when it comes to the CSR, perhaps CSR is going to take a back seat for the time being. Till such time, we are in a position to earn, save, and contribute more and more to the community at large. And of course, when the policy changes are going to take place, the fields of income and welfare benefits of the employees are going to be changed. And maybe in the CSR area also, the community spend is going to decrease. Government support for the corporate bodies in the government in PSUs that will be required. And private companies, of course, the profit motive will still be large. But at the same time, as Ratan Tata told, this year is going to be survival, not perhaps seeking in terms of the profit. But at the same time, we have seen many unstable things happening for the masks, for the sanitizers, and for the things that are very much in demand, and not many principles are being followed over that. And corporate governance, and that too, a good corporate governance should have the ethics and the professionalism inbuilt in the core governance system. And now, coming to the dividend and payback, you must have seen the government now is asking from many companies, public sector, that high dividend, payback, and buyback of shares. But they will also have to think with the help coming in, with the corporate tax now has been reduced. So all these things are helping the bottom line of the companies. But at the same time, the sale proceeds not coming, the revenue getting compromised. Perhaps this buyback, disinvestment, and also the hard-hitting things that more and more of dividend that should be halted for the timing. Not only for the government as the large shareholder of the public sector, the same thing is going to be true for the shareholder in public market, in market. For that, again, the transparency, the communication policy, which are going to be done and circulated mostly through the digital media has to be done. No more the complaints is to be done offline through papers. Complaints require high online digital things to be on the process, and also the annual board meeting, the board meetings and others are to be done online. And then the basic principle of any corporate governance is inclusion of stakeholders, both inside and outside. So now it is going to be more and more difficult for a company fighting for its own survival, where the inclusion expectations are also to be monitored. So that is going to be, but what is going to be more relevant is quick decision making, the agility, the risk mapping, and the risk management. And of course, it will vary from industry to industry. As I told, pharma, yes, there is good demand. As I told, medicines, there is good demand. But at the same time, the innovative things, maybe coming for this COVID antibody creation medicines, that is one area where the research, there are many researches are going on, but there is a scope for the pharma industry to do that. And developing all those things that are required by ICMR or the WHO, those things are also. And maybe the sort of beds we have created now, the corporate hospitals would come in. Another corporate thing is going to come in when we think in terms of now, many migrants have come back. Agriculture will get more importance now, more of labor will be coming, but corporatization. And I'm talking of another creating a corporate body for looking after perhaps dairy products because Amul has been the only one, perhaps not many. Paras has been there, but many scope are there. So we'll see the creation of maybe new MSMEs or new corporate bodies, specifically in the dairy sector, in the farming sector, including the agriculture. And also, one more thing, the total package that government has assured, government will be paying, but there are many links attached to it. These are not rider free, and everything will depend on how we perform, how we manage the things. And this is a period where people would like to go for short term also. Many private corporate bodies would like to go for acquisitions and mergers. Normally in acquisition and mergers, there's a tendency to cut corners. And now that there will be distress sharing, now that people will be offering themselves, many corporate bodies, just for song. So this acquisition and this sort of acquiring, buying the assets and the stakes of other companies is going to be more prominent. So maybe good companies will try to bolster their strength right now, not to indulge in buying or acquiring other companies, but at the same time, people having now in private sector big pockets will definitely venture into buying the things. That is what perhaps I wanted to do. And again, people fleeing from. And another scenario is coming from for the new corporates that many corporate accounts will be resettling in India now instead of being for ease of business, you know. So that, but at the same time, when the speed is required, accuracy also is equally required. When we take great speed to perform the things, maybe for survival, maybe for the long-term sustenance, at the same time, compromising the principles, cutting the corners, and where we will be hampering the overall benefit of the society that should not be indulged in. And every corporate body should uphold the principle of ethics and corporate professionalism. Though in the short run, I feel many areas of welfare, many areas of community development are now to be left to the government, perhaps, corporate people not coming in good strength for doing that period. But again, I'm very hopeful the way our people are, the way the residencies are, the way we are getting the indication that lot many new business houses will get relocated to India. Perhaps our corporate governance, that is the essence of doing good to people, doing good to society at large, will keep pace, though this difficult time will be over. But now we look forward for the light at the end of the tunnel and the message that is coming in, though we have not been able to win over this corona pandemic, but living with that and living with a great hope that we'll be able to beat it in all our walks of life. So it's going to take place. So now it is not the life alone, it is the livelihood, and livelihood is one thing which corporate bodies will have to aid and assist to tell people to take it for a better society. Thank you so much. Any questions there? I'll welcome.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, Professor Acharya. Thank you for that extensive explanation on the roles and responsibilities that the corporates and the senior management team should assume in order to ease the process of doing business in this current scenario. And you have very correctly pointed out that contribution has to be made for society at large. So thank you, sir. Moving on to Professor Ramana, sir, we have a question for you. Sir, the government is the major provider of services to the common man, and you have been associated with several government organizations. So, can you throw some light on the basic changes in the governance practices at the level of government with regard to public services and the challenges that they're facing in this scenario?
Thank you very
The
much.
government more flexibility now Is it for Professor Ramna?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
It's
Or
for
is it over?
Professor Ramna.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank
okay,
you
okay.
very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
Right,
you.
yeah.
Thank you very much. After listening to both Professor Das and Professor Acharya, they have actually given two important components of the public services, that is the banking and the corporate sector. When we say public service, the delivery of public goods and services is one of the most important and basic responsibilities of the government. And this is all the more important, particularly in this particular period of pandemic, during the pandemic and post-pandemic period. The basket of public services consists of many items. Of late, uh, market also chips, private sector also chips in by providing those services to the people. However, the government has a very important role to play, to deliver, to design and deliver these services to the people. But here, because the focus is on COVID and post-COVID, I would like to stress on the delivery of services for the poor. Because the delivery of services for the poor needs special mention because of their dependence on the public services for the very survival, which is not the case for people in the middle class or upper class or higher strata of the society. So in this period, in this difficult times, the provision of public services plays a very important role in general, but definitely plays a very important role in particular for the poor people. But when you try to design public service, there are many. As you mentioned that I am associated with some of the services. My association with public services are power, electricity, to some extent housing, and definitely education. But before I pick up one or two things, because there's a vast canvas, I'd like to confine to one or two, three things to make the discussion bit relevant for this particular seminar. I would say that independent of the services that we are talking about, there are four important players in whenever we try to examine the services. One is the citizen, who is the beneficiary, the receiver, the policy maker, the politicians, organizations and the government actually, the bureaucracy, and the frontline professional, NGOs, government, the doctors, professionals who provide this service. So therefore, whenever we talk about Dr. Panda, you're mute. Yeah. So these four, whenever we talk about the provision and the services of public services, these four players have to play a very important role. And we have to see the role of these people post. Now let me pick up the focus in Orissa. And fortunately for the state of Orissa, of Orissa or see, I started talking about 5T, the transparency. I'll just pick up two, transparency and technology to deliver the public services. We have already examined and we have already realized that unless we tap technology, we cannot provide services, make the services to reach to the people. But there is a concern there. What is the concern for me there? In India, actually, internet penetration is about 38%. In Orissa, the internet penetration, as per September 2019, is about 28%. In rural, the percentage of internet penetration is much below 20%. Now, if you say that I'm going to use technology to deliver services, that there is a need for somebody to invest money in creating that technology, internet infrastructure. Otherwise, making these services to reach to the people may actually face a big bottleneck. So therefore, one of the biggest challenges of post-COVID management of delivery of public services is that a huge investment in technology. Unless government does that, it is not possible to bridge the gap between provision of services and the receiver. Then the question comes and the challenge comes, who is going to make the investment? Will private sector make the investment or will government make the investment? We have seen that there have been questions that, whether private sector, will private sector be interested in creating that infrastructure without the usual financial rate of return? I also have my personal apprehension whether the infrastructure will be created by private sector. So therefore, my very clear conviction is government has to create and invest money to create this IT infrastructure to bridge the gap between the provider and the beneficiary. And this is one of the biggest challenges of during COVID and post-COVID. Unless we increase the internet penetration, it is not possible to achieve the objectives what central government, Prime Minister is saying, or even our own state CM is saying. So the biggest challenge is where is the money coming from? As Mr. Das has already mentioned, so Dr. Das has mentioned, as well as Professor Acharya has mentioned, the balance sheets of the banks are weak. The balance sheet of the private sector is weak, which we call them as a twin balance sheet problem. Now, this money for creating infrastructure has to come from the government. In order to improve the quality of public services, therefore, the government has to invest big money on the infrastructure. And also explain that by taking two industries, in particular in Odisha and in general for the country as a whole. Power sector, which I have observed very closely. I hope you all know that maybe from tomorrow, from 1st July, the CESU, for where we are all the consumer, CESU, electricity is one type of a public service. I hope all of you know that CESU is no more, or will be no more, a government company from tomorrow. The Tata Power will be having a majority stake in an SPV created, which has been recently passed by OERC. And that SPV will be managed and controlled by or owned by Tata Power and Gridco. But 51% of that SPV will be owned by a private company. Now, this is a very big challenge. What is the challenge? The challenge is a public service, a public goods like electricity being managed by a private entity will put an immense challenge on the investor as well as the government. Let me explain that one or two lines. Because a large chunk of the consumers are the domestic and poor people. With the present economic condition, the poor people's income has gone down, SMEs' income has gone down, the small vendors and other businesses have gone down, but they will not be in a position to pay power costs to the new private sector owner. So therefore, the challenge is, will Tata Power be motivated to create the necessary infrastructure to run to provide the services which is desired for at this stage? So that's a very big challenge. So we have shifted the provision of service to a private sector, but will private sector succeed in providing that service? And this is Odisha has been setting precedents in privatizing the private sector, in power sector. And we have failed in some extent, they have also succeeded. But I'm very happy that Tata Power has walked into this profile. But with the present economic and condition, I'm very skeptical about the bottom line effect of the business on the private sector. That's one. Number two is education. I belong to the education sector. I would say that if you pick up any good education institute today, in India or in Orissa, that's owned by a large private sector or private entrepreneurs, they're able to provide technology-based education to their students through Zoom, through WebEx, and all. Education is a public service, is a public good. So if you want, you can see that. Though of late we started making it as a more a private good. What is my concern is, for example, the students of my own university, Uttam University, students of my college, BJP College, students of Ramadevi College, students of many other, even to some extent, Ravincha College, do not get the facility of this online coaching services. So therefore, this is important that the government has to invest once again in creating the necessary infrastructure to provide that education. Otherwise, the gap between the rich and poor, the gap between have and have not, will actually widen post-COVID, not just the economic gap, but also social and academic gaps. So therefore, the public service provision requires huge investment, and that is needed to be. Government has to create that investment and put that money. Otherwise, there'll be a big effect on the society as a whole. For the time being, I'll stop here. I may be open for question. So my broad conclusion is provision of public service is an important work of the government, and the government, both central and the state, has started using correctly, rightly, appropriately technology. But the technology is not sufficient because the penetration is very abysmally low. Rural India is definitely very poor. So there is a challenge of who is going to put in that investment. If private sector is going to put in investment, there is a pricing problem, only rich can pay. But if private sector will not, if the government will not, then the public in general will suffer. So therefore, I strongly urge and expect that the government will pump in money to create the necessary infrastructure. I'll stop there to improve the delivery of public services. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Ramana. Thank you for your valuable opinion regarding the delivery of public services and how government should provide infrastructure regarding internet penetration. All of us talk about using a lot of internet, having social media presence, but then there are a lot of people around us who are not yet connected to the internet, and how it is important to have an overall development. Thank you so much, sir. Moving on, I have a question for Sri Sanjeev Mishra. So you have vast experience in the administration of urban local bodies, and also your experience in the functioning of PRIs as a member of the Fifth State Finance Commission. So what changes do you notice in the functioning of these institutions, and do you foresee any governance challenges in the post-COVID period? Sri Mishra.
Very good morning, Lopa and other panelists.
Thank you.
So first of all, we need to decide whether we have arrived in the post-COVID scenario.
Right,
In the sense we are not in post-COVID, we are a bit in advance, because the other day someone told that our timelines are not decided by the government but by the virus. So virus decides our timelines. But all things said and done, we have to admit that this pandemic has wreaked havoc globally, and it has living a challenge to government at any level, whether be it national or state or local, and they are grappling for a suitable response. In this background, when I talk on the role of local self-government or the PRIs and the urban local bodies taken together, we know that in independent India, the epitome of decentralized governance is considered to be these local bodies. And why not? Because India is home to approximately 2.6 lakh of Panchayat Raj institutions and above 5,000 urban local bodies in the entire country. And all the more, in the Gram Panchayats, we have got about 3 million elected representatives. out of which 1 million are women. It is the largest democratic organization in the world. Anywhere in the world, such a large local self body is not available. So I will say that they are the foundation for any edifice, that is the state government or for the national government. Whenever there is a crisis of natural calamity or the pandemic situation, it is whether it is natural or man-made, it is still debated. So in this scenario, people run usually to a gram panchayat because they immediately they are next neighbor, next their door neighbor, and they bank upon heavily then on the government bodies before going to a block office. They always contact the sarpanch. What all we have to do. This is mainly due to the fact that the panchayats do have a better local knowledge. They do have a proximity with the citizens, and for most citizens, panchayat is the first contact point because panchayat is in a better place or well placed to know about the mobility and the social security needs of these people. Now, Professor Maharana in the beginning had indicated certain attributes of good governance or governance issues like accountability, transparency, control of corruption, inclusiveness. All these things are all these attributes of good governance has been put to an acid test, and because they are more abstract in nature. So the entire lexicon of governance needs an overhauling. And one single thing that is important in governance in today's scenario is the competence and commitment. If these two things are not available, whatever other ancillary things you may vouch for is not going to yield result. Now, in this scenario, I have viewed three stages. First is the response. What is the response of our gram panchayats to this COVID-19? How they are addressing the issues of containment, quarantine, social distancing, taking healthcare measures at village and city levels. Here I will like to highlight the state government has decided to give the powers to sarpanch of the collector. That means in consultation with the health department, they can declare these containment and quarantine things at their own level. It is nothing new. If you remember, when there was a spot of cases of starvation death in our state, Kalahandi, Balangir, the KBK districts, at that point of time, government declared that it is not feasible on the part of the government to address each and every starvation case. Hence, they empowered the Gram Panchayats. The Sarpanch was empowered to issue a GR card, gratuitous relief card, that will provide 1 month ration to a destitute family. So that means indirectly, earlier GR card was issued by the collector. Now it is being issued long since, about 3 decades now, it is being issued by the Sarpanches. So similarly, the local authority, that is the Gram Panchayat, is in a better position to decide what is the extent of the effect of that pandemic in their area than a collector or a BDO standing at a distance. Then we have after this response stage, we have the recover stage. At this stage, local bodies have nothing much to do. Rather, they have to follow the state and central government directions in this regard, how the recovery plan of the economy the government is contemplating. And the final stage is the thrive. How to thrive? Having survived the crisis, we now have to innovate ways and means how to revive our economy and improve our public delivery system. And the more important is that revisiting the entire supply chain. Now, so far as the functions are concerned, it is very laudable. Constitution gives 29 core functions to the panchayats, 18 functions to the urban local bodies. To what extent the states have devolved, it is another matter of debate. But I will now bring to the table a point that the Disaster Management Act of 2005, had there been no act prior to this 2005, suppose this act would not have been legislated in the parliament, under what law the entire lockdown would have been announced? The section 10 clause 2 of the Disaster Management Act 2005 only provides a passing reference, not mentioning the lockdown, a passing reference that government can take measure any health hazard. To contain health hazard can take any measure. Taking cue from that only, the government has declared the lockdown. Otherwise, no law in the country. We have got plethora of laws. We had never thought that a situation will come when the entire country is need to be shut down. So there in the section 41, lot many power have been given to the local bodies to carry out relief, rehabilitation, and reconstruction activities in the affected areas. So definitely, it requires that we need to trust these local bodies. Hitherto, we have been witnessing that there is a trust deficit with these on these local bodies. The local politicians are never taken into confidence by either at the Panchayat Samiti level, or at the district level, or at the state level, or at the national level. They have always been considered as the rivals in the political system, whereas they are the basis of the entire developmental process. Now, the biggest governance challenge that panchayats will face is in the maintaining a supply chain, particularly public distribution system, the PDS. For the information of this house, I would like to mention that around 13,000 PDS outlets are there in the country, in the state now, out of which about 50% PDS outlets are managed by the Gram Panchayats. And gradually, as per the recommendation of Wadhwa committee, all things will come to the institutional management, either Panchayat or the self-help groups. So definitely, providing a good amount of buffer stock to meet such a crisis will be a big challenge for this, because we now see a lot many challenge in the food sector. I will just give one example, how difficult it is to deal with the PDS matter. My maid servant is at Bhubaneswar. Her family NFS food security card is at Berhampur. She last lifted the quota in the month of February last. March, April, May, now June. She is unable to go to Berhampur to lift her quota. How does she manage here? How she sustain? She used to get 30 kg of rice at a cost of 30 rupees. Now 2 kg dal she would be getting, she is missing. 1,000 cash incentive she is missing. How she runs? So these are the biggest challenge, how panchayat and city level governance will handle these things in consultation with the state government. Maybe the one nation, one ration card philosophy is there, but it is still has to be grounded. It is not yet grounded fully. So no, these are the very, I am just cited the example of my maid servant. There are thousands of people in Bhubaneswar, I will tell, who are deprived of their food ration, monthly entitled food ration. For long since last February, they are going without the food ration. So they are banking upon the open kitchens, the free kitchens that are being made available to them now and then. Then the local bodies in the governance issue should not only be considered as implementing agencies. They are to be recognized as independent governance entities. Then only the semblance of governance will return to these rural local bodies. We have to do away with the catchphrase that we have a central solution to everything. No, we do not have a central solution to all sorts of problems. We need to have this Cuban model, that is all hands on deck. All hands on deck approach need to be followed. That is a mix of bottoms up and top down approach. Then only we can have a viable thing. Another biggest governance challenge will be with the rural bodies, more particularly less urban, will be towards the migrant laborers. Imagine now every village demography has changed. Everywhere new entrants are there. But what they do, now it is right time the panchayats need to create a database of these migrant laborers, because they are not going in near future to their workplaces. They will open, they will go again rely, and they in this database their skilled labor, in which field they are skilled, that needs to be recorded. And according to their skill, if any opportunity comes at the rural level to provide them some temporary engagement for earning their livelihood, that also needs to be taken care of. Now, this migrant laborers have created another peculiar situation in the country. It has given rise to a feeling of parochialism, localism. I don't understand why the people who are there for generations in Surat will come back to their village. Why in Surat their problem could not be addressed? Are the foreigners? Now it may so happen post-COVID scenario, we may need a passport to go to the neighboring state. Recently, UP Chief Minister has announced that any state giving any employment to any man from UP, any labor employment, they have to take a clearance from the state. It is simply unthinkable. As per the constitution, in the free country, India is a free country. We are free to travel any part. We are free to serve anywhere for our livelihood. So the skill mapping and the data creation of these migrant laborers, and once they go back again to their workplaces, if not now, if tomorrow or day after tomorrow, that data need to be captured. Now government was in total confusion. The surge of migrant laborers registered to come back to the state was really difficult to imagine. And the whoosh of images that have come, these are gory images. You have to be startled. Is it a partition again we are seeing in the country, where such laborers are coming by all modes of available transport? So these are the biggest challenges that will come before the rural local bodies. Now, just I briefly hint at urban local bodies, since the cities are bit more resilient to this type of challenges, and cities are better addressed in meeting these challenges. But definitely, all urban planners are now going to see a new type of city planning, new type of zoning regulations, and city planning and zoning regulation is going to see a major shift. And so far as the public conveyance is concerned, public transport, cycling, pedestrian, and other micro mobility need are to be prioritized over motorized mobility. Large built-up areas and bustling street life will give way to fewer retail outlets. Open green spaces, more flexible work stores need to be created. So these are the potential governance challenges before the urban local bodies. Now the biggest challenge will be how we harness our existing social norms and develop a behavioral insight to promote public good. So my concluding lines will be: moving governance beyond the state and towards empowering the people will be the only solution to in the post-COVID era, or for that matter in any other era. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sri Mishra. Sir, you have very rightly highlighted how the power has changed at the panchayat level, and how nobody was expecting a scenario like this, yet government has taken cue from that single section, conferring upon it that much power to keep us quarantined and to protect us. So thank you so much, sir, for your deliberation. Moving on, we have a question for Dr. Ashok Panda. So thank you for bearing us for such a long time. Sir, you have been both in the media and in academics, and we often see that there is a lot of misinformation or fabricated information which is released to the media during the present COVID crisis. So what is your perception towards the major challenges that media is facing in the present pandemic situation? Dr.
Right.
Panda.
My gratitude to the School of Commerce, Birla Global University, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on a very interesting subject, that is the challenges faced by the media. Friends, my very learned co-panelists, and also my gratitude to Birla Global University. very crisply, I would just like to begin by saying the media follows you like a shadow. I hope all of you will agree with me. Wherever you
Yes, sir.
go, the media follows you like a shadow. And believe me, friends, if you hate the media is in your mind. And if you love the media is in your heart. So whether you hate the media or whether you love the media is always with you, which I'm sure all of you will agree with me. Now, with this, I would just like to tell you one little beautiful thing which all of you will appreciate. In common parlance, what is the definition of news, which emanates from the media? News is an account of an event which has interest for the public and a special types of disruption of the status quo. So, what are the two basic ingredients to qualify for news? Number one is interest for the public. Number two is disruption of the status quo. Friends, believe me, the COVID-19 has been an unprecedented disruption and an unprecedented interest for the public. You believe me, and all of you will agree with me, whether it is the first page or the first report in the news channel or its omnipresence in the, I would say, the social media, the COVID-19 has always hogged, always news in the first page, or the first report, and also omnipresent in the social media. So you can well imagine how important the COVID-19 has become. And all of you will agree with me, a very, very important thing, which now when we are talking of challenges for the media, friends, let me be very, very honest with you, because media persons are always honest. And I want to be very, very honest with you. And let me tell you, some people will not agree how honest the media is, but I'm honest. So I would like to tell you very, very honestly that the greatest challenge at this juncture is the media itself. Friends, you will agree with me. I repeat, the greatest challenge at this juncture is the media itself. Friends, believe me, the greatest challenge for the media now is its own survival. Believe me, I repeat again, the greatest challenge for the media itself is its own survival. Uh, you'll be very astonished to know that many media organizations, particularly small, newspapers, they have pulled down their shutters. Some of the, I will tell, I'm not telling all, some of the newspapers or media organizations are also struggling very hard to survive. And there are very senior, very big newspaper organizations who have not gone for pay cuts of 20 to 50%, but have identified people and telling organizations that you take 1 month's salary and from tomorrow, you please don't come to our organization. So just imagine the media challenges which the media is facing. So it's a very difficult and piquant situation for the media. I'll just give you a beautiful example, which I'm sure all of you love it. A news reporter who is working in a very small newspaper. He works for full 10 hours. He moves around Bhubaneswar, comes to his office with interviews, with photographs, with different, news bits, and he tells the news editor, he meets the news editor and tells, sir, I work for full 10 hours. This is the interview I've taken. This is the news that I made. These are the photographs, which I've taken, and I want to give in today's newspaper. You know what is the reply of the news editor? The reply of the news editor is, my friend, for the last 3 days, there has not been a single advertisement in the newspaper. And today we have decided not to publish the newspaper tomorrow. Just imagine what a big challenge for that news reporter who has moved for full 10 hours, interviewing people, taking photographs, making news items, talking to the people. Just imagine, उससे बड़ा challenge क्या हो सकता है for the news reporter? Just imagine his fate. You know what the news reporter did? He moves out. He has some acquaintance He has some acquaintances. He goes to a big organization and tells, we are in very bad shape. So, will you be able to give me a 10,000 rupees ad because our newspaper is in peril and I do not know whether it will be published or not. And he carries a 10,000 rupees ads, comes to the office, gives to the news editor and tells, so for 3 days there was not a single ad in the newspaper, but here, even though I am a reporter, I am not an ad man, but here is the advertisement which I would like to give you. And believe me, the news editor spoke to the owner of the newspaper and said, yes, tomorrow the newspaper will be published. What? Should we not recognize people, these media people who are giving their blood, sweat to see that the newspaper is running? It is not a very small thing, but that is the biggest challenge, as I told you, for the media management, for the media reporters, and all of you will agree with me that this is a very important thing which we need to address. Number two, coming to my question straight, friends, as you must have seen, I put up a small illustration over here, a very small illustration, a very relevant, and this little illustration is, first I said is COVID-19, and just below that I have written over there, disinfodemic. Then I have below that I have written misinformation, disinformation, and conflicting information. These are the major challenges for the media. Other than their own challenges, the challenges for the society at large is this disinfodemic, miscommunication, discommunication, and conflicting information. Now, friends, I would like to deal this in little detail, not in very detail because time is short. I will not go to a very big detail, but I will go to some detail. Otherwise, how will you understand? Friends, please understand one thing. When I'm talking of disinfodemic, I would just like to tell you one little point which is very, very important. The disinfodemic is described as the falsehoods that emanate in fueling the pandemic, the negative impacts it is having on the society. I repeat, this infodemic is fueling the COVID-19 pandemic so that reporting is not proactive, but reporting is reactive. So what happens over here? Reporting is not only negative, but what happens? Reporting is toxic and reporting is, believe me, deadly. In this infodemic phase, I come to the first phase. The first phase is known as misinformation. Now, friends, what do I mean by misinformation? Friends, believe me, misinformation, I would say, as a journalist, is misreporting, not verifying your sources. Like, for example, you are mentioning that in Odisha 1,000 people have died. You have not process. But when you say exactly how many people have died, when you talk to the government and tell, it means it is not misinformation. So misinformation is what? Carelessness. Misinformation is what? You have not verified. You have not verified the veracity of your sources. Misinformation is what? You have not talked to people and taken the genuine source. You have not talked to the genuine source. And as a result of misinformation, society at large, what? They suffer a lot. Now, but let me tell you one little thing about misinformation. Misinformation is definitely not malicious. It is not malicious. Maybe you have done it, carelessly. You have done it, not with a very bad intent, but that is misinformation. But it is false information. Now we are coming to the next phase, and the next phase is known as what we talk about disinformation, friend, very, very important. Now, when we talk about disinformation, it is known as malicious reporting. And what do I want to understand by malicious? It is rumors, insults, pranks, and you create misunderstanding in the community at large. By disinformation, you create misunderstanding in the community, and what you do, you create a campaign, a propaganda in the society, whereby, please believe me, with this, what happens? People become what? Discord among people. There is a discord among people. There is a division among people. There is a polarization among the people. Whereby groups are created, political groups are created, and as a reason of which it is very, very important that this information is a very, very malicious, and this information is definitely very bad to the society. Now, friends, now and what is the basic difference between miscommunication, information, and disinformation? The most important thing is in this information, your intention may not be malicious. Your intention may not be very deliberate, but in this information, is deliberate, very important. Deliberately you are doing it, covertly you are doing it, with an intention to malign somebody's image and to create confuse and discord in the society. Very, very important. That is the basic difference between misinformation and disinformation. Now we are coming to another very important point, a very, very important point, and that is known as conflicting information. I've told you about misinformation, I've told you about disinformation. Now I've come to a very important point, a very important phase, and that is known as conflicting information. Conflicting information, friends, are very, very important today. I will just give a false and misleading information are known as conflicting information. Just imagine, I'll just give a very beautiful example. I don't know whether many of you know it or not. In Italy, a dead body was dissected. He went for postmortem, and he went for postmortem. And after the dead body went for postmortem and dissection, the doctors over there and also the government people, what they said? They said COVID-19 is not a virus. COVID-19 is a bacteria. Just imagine, the entire world is telling COVID-19 is a virus. Here, after a postmortem and after a dissection of a dead body, the people out there, the doctors out there, tell that COVID-19 is not a virus. COVID-19 is a bacteria. Just imagine how conflicting it is. Just imagine how conflicting it is. To come to another point. Like, for example, the president in China is telling that the COVID-19 has emerged from US, whereas the president of the United States of America is telling this is a Chinese virus and it is emanated from China. Just imagine the conflicting information. Because of the conflicting information, what happens? It has become absolutely difficult for people like us to discern what is right information and what is wrong information. And I hope all of you agree with me. Now it is very, very difficult to discern because, and more important for all of us, it is very, very important is that information need to be reinforced. Again, in conflicting information, I come to another very, very important, like for example, Chief District Medical Officer from Kumar is giving one version. Chief Medical Officer from Khurda is giving another version, and both are contradictory to each other. Some Chief District Medical Officer, he is also Chief District Medical Officer, but the version of both are contradictory in nature, are opposing in nature. Just imagine what is the plight of the audience, what is the plight of the viewers What is it like for the people at large? Please imagine how difficult it is for the people. In such a scenario, just imagine how challenging is, is the job of a media person. You can just imagine how challenging it is the job of a media person. Conflicting information with disinformation, with misinformation, with disinformation, all along. Just imagine how challenging, what a difficult job it is for the media person who is on the job. And I will tell you, very point blankly, well, I would like to tell you, never pamper the media, never work for the media, never work against the media, work with the media. And when you work with the media, you get the best result, and the media will deliver you wonders. Believe me, what is happening now, what is happening on the roads, what is happening on the hospital, what is happening in the police station, how do you know? You only know because of the media. You only know because of the media. And just imagine what a massive job the media has. And just imagine if the media goes in the right perspective, in the right awareness, I'm sure that is the best friend, your best friend, the best friend of the society. I'm not telling the others are not friends, but the best friend is the media, because what is happening around, you only come to know through the media. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Very good, sir. You made us to be awake.
Thank, thank you so much, Dr. Panda. We actually got a visualization of how media looks like. Absolutely. And thank you for reminding us that the virus has affected people both on camera, off camera, and like you mentioned, many of the media houses are shutting down, and a lot of people have got their pink slips. So thank you so much, sir, for discussing the challenges in media. And thank you to all our panelists for their beautiful and very insightful deliberations. And we see a lot of questions coming in, but since we're running very late on our schedule, so I will request our attendees and participants to kindly leave us their questions and mail IDs, and we'll definitely get back the answers from our panelists. And now I would request our Dean, Professor Dr. Samson Maharana, to kindly give his closing remarks and give us a summary of the deliberations. So please.
Dr. Panda, that was wonderful.
Professor Maharana, are you there with us?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I again once again thank all the members of the panel. It was a very enlightening and learning experience for all of us today. I must say that this particular pandemic, COVID-19, has it has given us an unprecedented opportunity to learn new things about the governance and how governance can bring something very good from the government institutions and bankers. We had the experts from different sectors, and we had a shortage of time, but in spite of that they have focused on the cream. And I must say that ultimately the basic objective of the governance in all these areas is we want a responsive government, we want a competitive corporate, we want healthy banks, we want responsible media, and also we want inclusive society. This requires dynamic leadership and a strong willpower for the institutional transformation and all the field of the governance. Well, governance changes have already started flowing in all the sectors. What we need that the flow need to be accelerated and in an integrated manner, so that in the coming years, maybe we do not know when we'll have a COVID, post-COVID. I can say that there may not be any post-COVID, we have to live with COVID, but that particular period will be a period where these particular institutions will be more vibrant, and ultimately that will optimize the benefit to all the stakeholders. I once again thank all the members of our esteemed panel.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor
Thank you,
Maharana.
sir. Thank you very much.
Uh, Lopa, is it end? Can you finish?
Yes,
Lopa?
sir.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Over and out.
Yes, sir. All good things must come to an end, and so does this webinar. My heartfelt gratitude towards all our esteemed panelists who readily accepted our invitation for this webinar, and we are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for our Honorable Registrar, Sir, Professor Dr. B.K. Das, for having been here with us today as a constant support and motivation and sharing his views on the current topic. And I would also like to thank our Dean, Professor Dr. Samson Maharana, for his enthusiastic support. And a special thanks to my faculty colleagues and the organizing committee, Professor Neha Joshi, Dr. B.P. Vijay-Shankar, and Dr. Hemant Banawat. And also to Mr. K.M. Pandey for their support and coordination. Finally, my heartfelt thanks to all the participants and attendees from commercial banks, corporates, media, consultancies, and different government organizations, students, and faculty alike for their active participation, for being so inquisitive, asking so many questions, though we couldn't answer any of them, but we'll send you the answers, and for making this webinar lively and successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Lopa.
you. Thank you, sir.